So today we're talking about money.
Everyone gets a job.
So Zac, how much money can people make when they become, I guess, the best in their field? How much can we anticipate as a senior tester, senior developer?
I've seen devs get paid up to £1,000, £1,200 a day.
People in England, they don't know you can make six figures in tech.
There's a potential to earn more money in technology than there is in other industry.
I would really like to pick your brain on how to actually identify whether you're actually on the right rate for your, I guess, level in your career, level of experience. Hi guys, welcome back to Tech Talks with Rachel. Today's going to be a really interesting one for those of you who want to make money. Money for me is the most important thing when I'm working and I want to make, I guess, a good quality of life, right? A good living for a good quality of life. So I'm here with Zac and he's going to give us a lowdown on everything money, whether you're contracting or whether you're in employment. Welcome, Zac.
Thank you.
So today we're talking about money.
Okay.
And I always say the British culture is really negative when it comes to money. We don't want to talk about it. And yet it's the most important thing for our quality of life. What do you think about that?
I think you're right. I think there's a certain humbleness that comes from Brits.
Yeah.
When we talk about how much money you've got, how much disposable income you've got, how much your rent costs, how much your mortgage is.
It's always hush-hush.
Yeah. And I think that the collective strength of people talking about money generally empowers more people. And that's something we do uniquely here in the UK compared to other places.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about this conversation, but we first want to get to know who you are. So What is your name and title? And tell us a bit about yourself.
So my name's Zac Donlon. I am the contract director at a little place called Forward Roll Recruitment, based here in Manchester. I have been working in tech recruitment for about 10 years, always kind of hiring the same type of people, always in the same kind of place here in the Northwest, working with some of the best and certainly some of the worst companies here in the Northwest. And I've been with Forward Roll for about 6.5 years, and I'm now the contract director. And what else about me, really?
So who are you outside of tech?
I'm quite a nice, relaxed, calm guy, I reckon, most of the time. I try and switch off when I'm not working. I have a little dog, so I like to walk, lived in South Manchester with my wife, and like watching sport, eating really nice food, doing nice things, really good at going on a holiday. I'm really, really good at
your favourite spot you've been to?
I like all the really unusual countries, to be fair. So like earlier this year was in North Macedonia. Went to Albania last year.
Wow.
One of my favourite places I've been was Tallinn in Estonia.
These are locations I would never put on my travel list. And I'm a traveller as well. Like, how were they?
Oh, so good. All of those places which you don't see in like the travel guide are the best places to go. So I go through a period of time of just looking on Skyscanner to see what I could find on a Friday to like a Monday. Just choosing the weirdest place.
Do you know what? I think I agree with you because I went to Romania.
Yes.
And I was pleasantly surprised. I was so shocked. Obviously, I think Bucharest was a bit of a letdown, personally. I felt like it wasn't developed enough and there wasn't a lot going on.
That's why it's good though, isn't it?
But the spa was there, which was good. But my favorite was Cluj.
Yeah.
Cluj felt a bit more like Manchester. Felt like there was loads going on. And even though it's not like exactly like England, for example, it just felt like I was home.
Yeah, Cluj is probably a tech hub as well.
Yeah, it's a tech hub, exactly. I went there for software testing conference, the biggest one in Europe. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I did a very similar trip last year to Romania. I went to Bucharest, went to that therm, the spa.
Yeah, the spa is beautiful.
And then went up to like Transylvania and did some of like the castles and like the fake Dracula stuff.
Oh, I love that. Honestly, I'm going back to Romania because when I flew in, it was just for the business stuff. It was for the conference and stuff. But I was like, this is a great travel location. I'll come back here because it's cheap.
So cheap.
And it's like the weather's amazing, and the people are amazing as well. Like I made loads of friends because I went on my own.
Yeah.
And I made loads of friends, and I still speak to them now. Can you imagine? So I just feel like it's those trips that you don't anticipate that end up being really good.
Absolutely. And like all of those places that I mentioned, I've got so many weird little locations I've been, have always like surprised me, I think. And that's why I've enjoyed going to those places so much. And that's why there's still a draw of like the random country.
Yeah.
You might not have heard of you, or you won't think that's going to be a good holiday destination.
Yeah.
And if you kind of embrace like the unknownness about it, it always surprises you.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm going to call you next time I'm booking my trip. I'm like, where should I go?
Where should I go next?
Where should I go next? Yeah. So back to tech.
Yes.
How did you get into tech initially?
I not probably like a traditional route into tech. So I did French, Spanish, and Italian at university, and then kind of didn't know what to do. So when I left, I was working in a cocktail bar here in Manchester, and my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, was working in an office job, and essentially we wanted to see more of each other. And I was working in the evenings and the weekends and stuff like that. And I just wanted an office job. At the time, it didn't really matter what it was because I didn't know what my kind of career trajectory was going to be. Ended up going into recruitment initially for like software engineers, and got a bit of my life back on an evening and a weekend so we could spend time together. And it's kind of snowballed from there, really. I've ended up doing something that I enjoy that fits around my lifestyle, gives me a life back as well, right? Which is probably one of the most important things. And 10 years later, I find myself kind of still doing the same thing.
I mean, kind of is a bit of an understatement. You're a whole director, associate director. How is that? How does that work? For me, I don't really understand how recruitment works.
Yeah.
So what is an associate director within recruiting?
So I think the title probably has different meanings in different businesses. So for me, it means that I'm essentially like the figurehead of that contract team within Forward Roll here in Manchester. And that involves stuff like looking at paperwork, doing reviews. I still have a monetary target that the business wants me to hit. It's talking about strategy on markets, on new markets that we can potentially look at. It's taking ownership for a lot of the compliance process. So we're talking about contractors and tax status and IR35 and that whole world of like complicated tax affairs. It's talking about business risk as well. So our appetite for risk, it's really defining that. And it's also like interviewing new people who are going to come join us, which I think is probably my weakest area.
Interviewing is difficult.
Yeah. I actually really don't know what to ask people anymore. I'm just like, are you a nice person?
Are you going to do a good job?
Yeah, like, what am I looking for?
Yeah, it is hard. Even when I interview, I find it really difficult because I do the job day to day. I know what's good. Yeah. But at the same time, people can lie.
Yeah.
They're really good at putting themselves forward really well. And then they get into the job, you're like, oh, gosh, I made a wrong decision, like, recruiting this person because they're incompetent at doing this and that, but they really sold themselves highly. So it's a hard decision because the decision's on you. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's the job of a recruiter. Like when I recruit techies to go to businesses, I feel like I'm so competent at speaking to people, establishing like fact from fiction. But then when I'm interviewing people to come and join us and like work alongside me, I'm like, I don't actually know what I'm looking for out of someone.
Yeah.
But I think you can be quite misguided by like their experience or their ability to do stuff. When actually, most cases, people want to hire a personality.
Yeah.
Because you can always teach a good personality some additional skills.
That's true.
And if someone's got a bad personality, they could be the best at whatever they do, but they're probably not going to fit into that kind of ecosystem that you're trying to build.
Yeah, you need to have the right character, the right personality going into a certain business, because if that person's like malleable, they can adjust to whatever environment that they're put in accordingly. But so what does like a day-to-day look like for you as a recruiter?
So every single day is different. The majority of the days have the same type of like structure and routine, but it could be anything from, like I said, talking about IR35, chatting to prospective contractors. A lot of my time is spent trying to find new work, like in a business development capacity. So it's speaking to people, it's essentially professional networking, right? going out to meet people, the amount of times I'm in meetings during the week, like at different businesses and different places, and essentially trying to like find the best way to propose solutions. Because essentially the game that I'm in is solving problems for people from a resource perspective. And all of those people that I speak to and the partnerships that I'm trying to establish are on the basis that we solve the problem that they're facing. It's not always the case of just like, here's X and that solves Y problem. It's more than that. It's almost like providing full-scale service solutions for people to be able to, build whatever they want to build or deliver whatever projects they're looking to deliver, basically.
Okay, so it's actually quite diverse then. You have to have a lot of different skills. So
basically, there's so many different skills required. And I think it's really overlooked, that part of recruitment.
Yeah.
Because it's such a...
You're a very like extroverted person, and I feel like you're very sociable in that sense. So you can build those contacts. But what you've just said to me right now in terms of the business side, I'm like, oh, you're really, you're thinking about the impact of what you're doing, how it's impacting other businesses, resourcing and things like that. It's not just about, oh, can you come and do the job? There's a lot of theory and logic that goes into it.
Yeah, and there's the commercial side of it as well. So you've got to think about like every single aspect of what's going to make that work for the end client, and also what's going to be a successful business relationship for you. And really, you've got to provide the right solution to that business that's going to make it work for both parties. So from our perspective, finding the right person, and from their perspective, getting the right person at the right kind of rate they want to pay that's going to solve the problem for them. I think with recruitment generally, because there's such a low barrier to entry, which is quite well known, it only takes a few kind of key behaviors to elevate someone from like bang average to successful, making a name, having a personal brand and growing that out. And those kind of core behaviors aren't that difficult to do. But you'll notice from speaking to recruiters, regardless of where they are, what they do, if they know what they're talking about, if they're human, if they do what they say they're going to do. And, some of those simple behaviors can like change how you work as a recruiter internally and externally with clients as well.
So what would you say from your experience are the top maybe 3 to 5 skills that you need to be successful as a recruiter?
Oh, it's really hard because there's just so many that I've just talked about. So being human really is my top skill. It's being able to speak to people and like actually chat to them and find out what their problem is and be inquisitive. It's being able to ask really good questions, being authentically yourself, which is something that goes missing in a ton of people, a ton of recruiters that I speak to. Being a normal human, like not trying to sell people something they don't want, and really being able to establish yourself in a position where they value you, you value them, and as a partnership, it's really successful for both parties. What else is a good human responsibility to have? Being an excellent communicator, basically. So stakeholder management for me is both up and down. So it's up to all the clients that I work with, and it's being able to effectively communicate with stakeholders, and down to like people in my team, operations, like the back office engine room that really makes it possible for me to do my job. And it's, being able to chat to people and be nice to them and build relationships with people. And that's kind of really what it's all about. It's building really long-term good relationships where you're both invested in each other's value a lot of the time. Let's have a think of what else makes what other key skills there is. You've got to be quick thinking, pretty intuitive. I think that when I'm talking to people about contracts, most of the time, I probably know someone for the contract before they start telling me what they actually need. And that's because of the legwork that you put in behind the scenes to build a network of people who you can rely on, who you might have worked with before, who you'd hopefully work with again. And those people are kind of like, that's your bread and butter. That's what gives you your reputation and brand, right? So yeah, I think that might be it.
So you mentioned something.
Yes.
Being a recruiter is, there are a lot of skills, but there's a low bar of entry. Yeah. So how does somebody who wants to get into recruitment, tech recruitment to be specific, how do they get into it, and what do they need to do?
So I think that there's a variety of different businesses who are offering that kind of gateway entry into recruitment. I think the best thing they could do is go somewhere where this has a really strong training scheme to teach you all the sales technique and the tricks and all the little gaps in between. Someone that's going to pay you fairly as well, pretty important, especially if you're going in at entry level. The most valuable thing that I've probably learned throughout, even when I started in recruitment, was trying to learn as much as I possibly could about the subject matter that I was ultimately selling, right? So I spent so many hours learning all about the technology ecosystem, specifically around software projects, coding, testing, and all of those little bits, which essentially enabled me to sit in front of people confidently and talk about the solutions that I was essentially going to propose. And that level of knowledge about the subject matter I was discussing essentially just set me off on a career path of success. Because the amount of people who'd ring up or try and speak to businesses and go, what are you doing? I don't know what it is, but I can find it written on a CV somewhere. That transactional way of recruitment doesn't see that doesn't see that much success. Whereas really learn about subject matter, know what you're talking about, give the person you're speaking to the confidence that you're able to deliver what they're actually looking for is one of the key things. So yeah, that's my entry way. Get in, find somewhere with a good training. Find someone that pays you fairly, gives you a little bit of lifestyle back whilst you're doing the legwork to try and get into a position, and then just learn as much as possible. Regardless of what you're recruiting for, you might be recruiting actuaries or marketing people, devs, testers, project, business analysts, all of those technology skills that are in the ecosystem. Learn how to do it. Because I think now that some of the first stage interviews that I send some people to, I could probably sit there and pass that first stage interview.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah. So if we're looking at tech careers versus other careers, what is the main differentiating factor if somebody else is in a different recruitment industry?
Well, the main differentiating factor, I think recruitment's similar in a lot of places, done a pretty similar way. And the main differentiator is ultimately your product is always a person, right? So we're selling products which are people, and each different industry has a different type of product in it. So the way that tech people find each other and chat to each other is different to the way that marketing people do it. Or different to the way that anyone does it. So first of all, you've got to make sure you're fishing in the right ponds. So for tech people, you might find them on Twitter or Slack or Discord or community meetups and places like that. Whereas other industries are fishing in different ponds to where they find people. It's also a huge ecosystem of technology now in the UK. It's 2024. Pretty much every business is a tech business.
Yeah.
Your gateway to your customer is via tech.
Absolutely.
So even if you're working in a hotel, your customer gateway is via tech, right? It's through the internet. Yeah, it's through the app. It's through the website. So everyone's kind of working in tech. But the difference in the industry is people are different. Everyone comes with a different personality. There's stereotypes about what people who work in tech are kind of like. You've got to somewhat debunk them, find out everyone's a little bit different, and everyone appreciates a different method of engagement with them. So, yeah.
Do you get paid more as a tech recruiter compared to others?
I don't know. Okay. Solely because I've never worked in any other industry.
Okay.
I think so, probably. I think that the market cap for tech is much higher than the market cap for other areas of recruitment.
Yeah.
Therefore, there's a potential to earn more money in technology than there is in other industry. And I think that being realistic, it's only going one way. Tech's getting bigger. And that market cap is going to keep expanding and expanding. So that's the place to be if you want to earn money, I think.
Yeah. I think let's talk more about money, because I know that as a recruiter, I've heard some rumors.
Yeah.
I've heard some rumors that you get paid a lot of money when you place someone in a business.
Yeah.
Is that true?
It certainly depends on how you define a lot of money. But yeah, ultimately.
So do you get 50%, 20%? How much of the...
So take home personally or business?
Let's say, do you get a commission?
Yeah.
Okay. How does the commission work?
So every industry has a bit of a different... every business will have a different commission scheme for their consultants. I get paid a like-for-like commission. Some places you'll have a threshold to hit before you make any money. Some places you'll get 10% of it. Some places you'll get 50% of it. So each individual business kind of decides how they're gonna pay commission to their consultants.
So let's say someone is placed for a 70K salary.
Yeah.
How much of that would the recruiter get, for example?
So if it's a 70K salary, probably looking at a decent size value of that to the business is probably 20%. So let's say it's £14,000 fee for hiring that person at 70%. And then the consultant can probably expect 35% of that.
Okay.
So, which is about some quick maths, like £4,500 probably,
Okay.
based on a deal value of that size in commission.
Okay.
And that's kind of finger in the air money. And it depends when you get paid it or how you get paid it. And each individual business will pay the consultant a different rate. So when I signed up to work at the place I'm working at now, I signed up on the basis of the commission scheme was that. And if I generate that amount of revenue, then I will take that home. And anyone who's in tech recruitment or any type of recruitment will know that different businesses have completely different schemes. So you could go somewhere and take much more of the fee. You could go somewhere and take much less of the fee. You could get paid a higher basic salary and get less commission. You could get higher basic salary and more commission. It entirely depends on how the business wants to incentivize those employees. And ultimately, you can't get away from the fact it's kind of a sales role most of the time, right? So with sales roles comes that level of commission.
Okay, so I'm never going to be a recruiter.
Okay.
And some of the audience might never want to be a recruiter, but we want to know how we make the money in tech.
Yes.
So I want to know, I guess, how much we could scale to. So what you've seen, and sometimes when you're looking, like right now, the market's really rubbish. So sometimes when you're looking for a contract, you don't know whether you're getting underpaid or whether you're getting paid the right amount. So I would really like to pick your brain on how to actually identify whether you're actually on the right rate for your, I guess, level in your career, level of experience. And I guess let's start with how you identify people, because you're a contractor recruiter specifically.
Yeah.
You don't do permanent staff. So what type of contracts do you recruit for at the moment right now?
So mostly recruit for software engineers and testers in the Northwest. So mostly JavaScript or .NET contractors and automation and manual QAs, basically.
And from those that you're recruiting, what level are you recruiting for?
So in the contract market, it's pretty much all seniors because of the cost involved for the business and the value that they're going to return to the business or the end client, basically. There's not a market for mid-levels. If they're going to spend £500, £600, £700, £800 a day on someone, they want to know that they're completely capable and they can throw any amount of stuff at them and they'll be able to solve it. So the gateway is almost to be a senior engineer, tester, whatever, already before moving into that market. And those seniors are the ones who are going to command the highest rates as well, right?
So what's the highest rate you've recruited for?
10 years of recruiting. The highest rate I've probably is like £900 a day.
Wow, 900.
Yeah.
When was that? Was it recent?
It was probably 2021.
Wow. So in 2021, someone is getting £900 a day.
Yeah, imagine what that's worth without inflation.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. That's like 1.2 today.
Hey, who knows? I don't know if it's that bad, is it?
I mean...
But yeah, I think rates are really, really hard to like determine. And it's really difficult for me to say, this is the right rate or this is the right rate. The right rate is the rate that you're happy taking, right? And if you're happy taking £100 a day, then that's the right rate for you. And if you're happy taking £1,000 a day, then that also is the right rate for you. And you've got to put your own self-worth on that rate as well, given the market conditions. Like there might be a load of work out there that might drive rates down. It might drive rates up. There might be a load of people looking for work and that might drive rates down and up as well. But the right rate is the one you're happy with. And you can only say yes to the one that you're happy with ultimately.
I mean, I want the most money, Zac.
Yeah.
So
surely that's on you then to establish the right rate for you is X amount. And I chat to people sometimes and say, like, I've got this contract, I can pay £500 a day. And they're like, okay, I'm not looking at anything less than 600. And that's fine. Like you have to be in a position to be able to say no to it as well, right? Like value your worth at the same time.
Yeah. So how do you feel when people do that? Because I've had conversations with recruiters before, and I've almost felt insulted with how much money I'm being offered, especially considering the risks that you take as a contractor, right? You're in an employment where maybe it might be 3 months, and then maybe they're giving you $250 a day inside RI, something like that. So it's like I'm actually risking saying no to other contracts.
Yeah.
And I'm not even getting sick pay, not getting holiday pay, things like that. So it will probably set me back significantly by taking that. So how do you feel when people say, oh, please only call me if it's this amount? Because I feel a bit like cheeky saying...
Oh, I'm absolutely fine with that.
Okay.
It goes back to that kind of clear communication skill that I was talking about before. I know if I get a contract at X amount of money, I can bring that person and they'll be interested. And if it's not, then they won't be interested. So it's saving me time and effort to ring them because I know they're going to say no already.
Okay.
And that's because I would have had a conversation with them, got to know them a little bit, chatted to them about not just money, not just work, about life in general, worked out maybe what some of their key motivators are.
Okay.
Kind
so
of work backwards from there.
So it's a good thing.
Yeah, be honest.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Yeah. No, 100%. Like, you got to think about it like you're not in competition with the recruiter.
Yeah.
It's in your interest and their interest that you go and do that job because you're both financially going to benefit from it. And I think there is like a little bit of competition between like contractors and agencies who are always like, who am I doing the work for? But I think that if one of you wins, you both win.
Yeah.
So you've got to be thinking about it that way as well.
Yeah.
But when people are coming to you with rates like £100 a day inside IR35, I think that it shows such a massive level of naivety from the agency.
From their side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If when they go and speak to people and say, and they go, this is our grand idea, this is what we need for it, and we've got £100 a day, I don't know why these agencies aren't like kicking the door down and saying, you are insane.
Yeah, like you shouldn't even take it up to even take to people, because when I get called with like 100 or 250 or whatever, I'm like,
it's embarrassing.
It's actually really
I physically can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't, if I had an absolutely disgustingly low rate, like my personal brand matters to me so much. I'm not going to ring a load of people that I know, I trust and have worked with and say, I've got this dog of a project. Like, do you want to come work on it? It's going to ruin like my reputation with them, my credibility in general.
They're going to block you after that.
They're going to go, why's it ripping about this? Rubbish.
Don't call me back again, please.
I know. And it's the same with IR35, right? So IR35, massive bit of tax legislation. I genuinely have a moral dilemma about working on stuff that's
let's
inside
explain it.
IR35.
Let's explain IR35 first for those who don't know what it is. So in your best way, most simplest way, as
soon as possible. So
what is IR35?
IR35 came in 2001. I think it was Inland Revenue Point 35 is officially the point of the HMRC when they were called the Inland Revenue back then. It's basically a piece of legislation that means that if you are working via a limited company, but you have the same working rights and working practices as permanent employees, you have to pay the same level of tax as them. In 2020, there was a bit of a change of implementation. So previously the onus was on the contractor to determine their own status. In 2020, they were changing it, and because of COVID, it got pushed back to 2021, which meant that if the business was not an SME, so not a small, medium-sized enterprise, and they were a medium or large, the decision was on them to determine the status of the contractor. So what their tax status was. Were they a disguised employee with the same rights as a permit, therefore should be paying PAYE tax? Or are they legitimately a contracting business that's providing a service and therefore can pay themselves like dividends, corporation tax and all that stuff, right? So that kind of shook up the whole contract market. And there's such roles now as inside IR35, where you're deemed as an employee and pay the same tax as an employee, but don't have any of the same rights as them.
Don't get holiday pay.
So
sick pays.
And most of that's because the contracts will go on a time and materials contract, right? So it's based on every day that you work, you get paid. And if you don't work, you don't get paid. And that's essentially what determines it between being a B2B services contract and a permanent employee, where they're hiring you for you and your skill set, whereas a contractor hiring you for your business and the consultancy you can provide. And there is a bit of a blurred line between the two, don't get me wrong. And each individual business does deal with contracts in different ways.
And you said you've got a moral obligation to stick to outside.
Yeah, moral objection to inside.
Objection, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's like, the people that everyone I chat to wants to work outside IR35. So do I. Easier, much. I have spent I've spent 5 or 6 years trying to absolutely get the art of IR35 down. Like, I remember all the way back in 2018, like sitting in different offices in Manchester, in webinars, in seminars about IR35. And a lot of the success that I've had with outside IR35 contracts, I think, in the past 5 or 6 years is because I spent so much time learning about the bloody thing back then, right? So yeah, I have a moral dilemma with ringing people up saying it's inside IR35, because in the real world of contracting, it's all a business-to-business exchange.
Yeah.
And because of that, this should be outside. And all these businesses who are saying it's inside, they don't actually need to make that many changes to the way that they work with their contractors to enable them to be outside, because of the risk profile faced by contractors. Most of them just do a blanket ban, like, we will not engage with limited companies, which is why there's kind of a miscellaneous uproar from people about it. My personal opinion is that IR35 change in legislation has made the industry better, not worse. It's made it much clearer, be like between in or out. And that has only strengthened, I think, the position of legitimate outside contracts. Rather than previously, there was a lot of grey areas. And now there's really clear defined. Yeah. And there's a ton of people who still have a real problem with IR35 because they've always been sat in that grey area.
I mean, I will definitely stick close to you because I'm outside.
Yeah.
I don't want to work inside RI35 because it's at my disadvantage.
Yeah, and the additional tax burden as well, right? So
Yeah.
I think that if you're contracting, like I said before, you can bring your effective tax rate down to like 20%.
Absolutely.
14% in some cases.
Yeah.
But if you're inside IR35, then you're looking at a PAY tax rate of like 35, 40%.
Yeah.
More. And it's pretty similar to that. And especially if you're working inside, sometimes you have to pick up the employer national insurance cost. So you're additionally getting taxed on top of that.
Yeah.
Plus you might have like a student loan you've got to repay. Plus it might be over the threshold for the year. Or like in that weird gap between 100 and 120 grand when you get taxed like 60%.
Yes.
So yeah, it's massively disadvantageous. And it's the only person who's actually paying more money is the end client.
Yeah.
And if the end client understood the legislation, learned a little bit about it, and decided they could take some small and effective steps to silo their contractors and change their working practices, they could save themselves a difference. Like the cost savings are massive by doing a few small things. And if that's mostly down to the risk profile of these businesses. The ones with a decent risk profile will happily work with contractors outside.
So Zac, how much money can people make when they become, I guess, the best in their field? How much can we anticipate as a senior tester, senior developer, and I guess maybe people you've worked with? Because obviously being in tech recruitment, maybe you know how much project managers make at that kind of senior level, or other disciplines like maybe BAs, POs, or whatever. How much can people anticipate if they were to pivot into tech today and they were to scale up to being senior or lead, or even if they're junior or lead or senior at the moment, but they're permanent and they're thinking, oh, I want to get into contracting. How much money can they anticipate to make on average based on the contracts that you've dealt with? Yeah,
there's probably a twofold increase, first of all, and that's not necessarily a twofold rate increase, but it's the rate increase plus the additional tax benefit of it. So say we take a senior tester, for example, who's probably getting paid 55, 60K salary. They can go in somewhere at like £400-500 a day. And the way that I like to do the quick maths in my head is there's 244 working days a year, right? So every day is...
I've worked out 500 a day to be 120.
So 244 working days a year. So if you get £100 a day, it's about 25 grand a year, right? So let's say £500 a day is £125,000. So that's like a realistic rate for a tester. I think market rate probably right now in the Northwest is anywhere from 350 to 500 probably. But how long is a piece of string? Depending on the project, depending on the client, depending on the urgency and the necessity and all these little bits that your agent will hopefully levy to increase the rate. I think I've seen testers get paid £600, £700, £800 a day.
You should be calling me for those contracts.
I know,
what do I need? Probably super technical.
Well, I think in this world, it's all about network. It's all about who you know as well, right? So to get contracts, you have to know a lot of people, and to be really successful in your career, you have to be well networked generally. Yeah. And I think that looking at those higher rates, you know, they're not super common. You could take some of this like market rate quite happily and still earn really good money. But if you're considering, say you're getting 55 grand as a senior tester, perm, plus some holidays, plus some benefits, and you walk into something that's £400 a day, which is 100 grand a year, like it's a 40%.
Six figure.
Yeah, six
salary.
figures. Breaking 100 grand.
This is what I'm saying. People in England, they don't know you can make six figures in tech.
Yeah.
But it's very
They think
possible.
it's a Silicon Valley thing, don't they?
Exactly.
Silicon Manchester.
It's Manchester. Manchester. You can make six figures.
Yeah, 100% you can.
And that's a tester. So what about a developer with more technical skills? How much can they make?
Yeah, even more. Like if you completely depend on the project again, I've seen devs get paid up to £1,000, £1,200 a day. Inside, outside, mostly outside, people getting really good rates. And you can also, when you earn that kind of money, it can affect your lifestyle as well, right? Like lots of those dev jobs are work from home. Lots of any of the senior contracts are work from home, to be fair, or a minimal amount of time required in the office. And, you know, there's no end to that rate increase. It's just getting higher every single year. Like I remember when I started 10 years ago, like front-end developers getting paid like £200 a day or something.
Wow. And now it's 1,000.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Wow.
In like the top end of cases.
Yeah.
But like the rate increase in 10 years has maybe been like fourfold average. And, you know, there's another 10 years in the future to come, right? So who knows what it'll look like.
I can't wait for that time because that.
What would you do with your time though if you were getting paid an absolute stonking rate?
I would probably
Carry on working.
I'd probably invest it in this.
Yeah.
Because obviously I'm one of those people that I want to give back.
Yeah.
So if it enables me to invest a bit more into my passion projects.
Yeah.
So these are my passion projects. And I'm actually looking to do a charity soon.
Yeah.
Very, very soon. I'm going to launch a charity into mental health as well. So I think when you have the money coming in, first of all, it makes your life comfortable. Obviously, buy the flashy car, buy the nice house, and then you give back to the community, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, it's just about quality of life, having enough time to go to the gym, not running around all the time. If you've got that money, you know, the flexibility of life is there.
Yeah, you've got to work out what your priorities are as well. Like, if you, regardless of what you get paid, how do you establish your priorities in life? Like, do you want these things? Do you want to work 5 days a week, or do you want to like buy a house in the south of France and like go there for a bit? Right?
I'd probably live 6 months in Africa, 6 months in the UK.
That'd be pretty good to be fair.
Yeah, I just need to find the right country because I'm from Malawi.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go to Malawi. I just want to scout like different countries, see which ones.
To be fair, you probably would have quite a nice time traveling around Africa trying to find the right place for you.
Exactly.
That sounds like just do that for forever.
Yeah, exactly. And if you get me a really good contract at 1,000 a day that I can work remotely, I'm sorted.
And it's not too far in the time zone, is it, to be fair? Africa.
It's literally an hour. Yeah. So I'm sorted, please. Help me, Zac.
Yeah, I think that obviously some of those higher rates are some of the outliers, right?
Yeah.
But they're definitely achievable.
They're achievable, yeah.
100% achievable.
And I've worked with clients that are not geographically limited to the UK either, especially if you're with a client that doesn't have any issues with data or, let's say, government contracts. If you have a company that's just working with dummy data and they're not always in prod, or even their prod isn't like infringing any data
like privacy rights
or anything, they let you work from anywhere. So those are the kinds of companies I always look for.
Well, absolutely. I think like maybe the hack to getting a better day rate is to form yourself into a mini consultancy. So if like you'll know as well as I do, working with consultancies, they may be paying you £500 a day, but they're charging you out to the client at like £1,000 a day, right? So there's that's the real like profit gap for them. But if smaller SMEs, like one-man bands, like one or two people consultancies, start winning some of that greater work, which might not be time and materials, it might be statement of work based, it might be packages of work, then there's a massive increased earning potential there as well.
Yeah.
Which is why I chat to people all the time about that. Mostly like people I've worked with before when they were like heads of, who now are like working, contracting themselves at different places and like trying to form little partnerships.
Yeah.
Where I can find some work, they can go pitch it, and collectively we both win out of it.
Yeah.
Because we're essentially like, we can undercut these consultancies even by like £200 a day, which is £1,000 a week, which is £4,000 a month. yeah, which is 48 grand a year. And if you go to someone with that saving, they're going to go, wow, that's quite a lot of money, realistically.
Yeah.
And ultimately, those consultants are using people like me to find people anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to say we're cutting out that little middleman, because there's certainly some value in there. But there's huge scope there as well for growth, I would say.
No, I love that. I think it's really interesting when you start thinking about how to position yourself to earn as much as you can, because the UK has money, but people don't know how to make it. And a lot of people ask me, oh, how's a six-figure salary even possible in the UK? Because generally, the average salary, I Googled it, it's 34.
Is it?
34,000 at the moment. And I was really shocked. I was like, and then I checked the higher end of the top, I think it was like 2% or 3% or something. That's when the six-figure stuff was going in there. So I was like, I was wondering, I was like, why is it not, I guess it's not that likely, I guess, in general, but I guess people just don't know that it's possible because the figures are so small.
Yeah. I think that it's like, don't get me wrong, depends where you are in life, but 35 grand average salary can sometimes afford you a good quality of life. But to be in those higher levels, you have to make really shrewd moves and be in the right place at the right time and know the right people at the same time. And you're saying you think the UK doesn't have a lot of money. A lot of the government contracts that land in the UK are released via a portal, something called G-Cloud, which is essentially a government procurement platform. And every year they release the stats basically on which suppliers have basically billed the most money to the government. And at the top of the list, you've got like KPMG, Deloitte, all the massive consultancies taking huge chunks of the pie. Like, I looked at it this year and like the KPMG one was like hundreds of millions of pounds.
Oh, Lord.
And like they've just got such a large infiltration in the public sector money. Like that's one example, public sector, right, versus private sector. But like there's huge amounts of money being spent on stuff, and those consultancies are just hoovering it all up because they're on a government gateway that gets them all that work. So you've got to be shrewd. It's got to be tactile. It's all about positioning.
Yeah, position yourself correctly, and honestly, you can get that six-figure salary very, very possible in the UK. Okay, so before we wrap up, I just want to ask,
Go.
What are the top things that you look out for on CVs? How do you identify the seniors to call once we get to that position we're applying? Which sites are we where should we apply? And how are we going to get picked up? And is it actually effective if I apply with my CV and then I call you? Or am I just annoying?
I don't want to say no, but I might say no. So I'm probably not a great advocate for this because I don't advertise any of the jobs that I work on, which I probably get told off for sometimes at work. It's mostly a marketing. To be honest, in the world of contracts, advertising jobs is a marketing exercise. Like the value that comes from working with someone like myself is the network that they've got underneath the layers. It's the people I spoke to before. It's the people I've got saved in my phone. It's the people who I know are reliable. And to be honest, that's where the majority of my workers come from.
You found me online and you called me.
Yeah. No, I don't mean that that's exclusive.
No, as in how did you do that though? In terms, I'm trying to understand so that it happens again.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I think that from my position, what I'm doing, as well as doing that day-to-day business development, trying to get new stuff, trying to win new projects, a lot of the work that I do goes into building a network of people who I like the look of because they're technically skilled, capable. I don't want to use the phrase geeks that can speak, but stakeholder management's a huge part of it, especially for contractors. And like the absolute spider's web of contacts that I've got behind the scenes and people that I've spoken to, that is my first port of call for any vacancies that I'm looking at.
So how does someone get discovered by you? Because how did you discover me?
Yeah, I can't remember how I found you.
It was on JobServe.
It was on JobServe.
JobServe, I made my CV public.
Yeah.
And you saw it and then you
rang you up. Yeah, I was working on a job that was like perfect for your experience, I think. So I rang you up, we had a chat about it, you went for it. Easy as that. And sometimes it can be as easy as that. And I think that that makes it sound like it's, shelling peas. But it's not that easy at all, really. I think that what I'm looking for in people is a certain set of skills that is going to be valuable for me and the partners that I've got at some point. If it's not today, then it might be in 6 months, it might be in 2 years. Like I remember I went to the North Report to meet a mobile dev in like 2017. Chatted to him, really nice guy, didn't have anything for him. And then the first time he worked for me was in like 2021.
Okay.
So it's a long-term relationship build. And I'm constantly trying to add new people into that network as well. So I am looking on some job boards. I am sometimes looking on LinkedIn. I'm using like meetups that I go to. I'm using Slack, like everywhere that those techies trying to hang out, to get in touch with people, and because they might see some value in me and I might see some value in them in the future as well. And it's hopefully worked a little bit all right so far. But yeah, what I'm looking for really when I speak to people is them to be able to confidently talk about what they're doing, really give me some decent examples of problems that they've solved before. Because I think anyone kind of working in tech is essentially a solution provider, problem solver. I want to be able to like throw a car crash at you and for you to solve it for me, right? And I'm also looking more than the perm side for the contractors. I'm also looking for you to be able to really eloquently chat to stakeholders at all different levels. So everyone from the CEO to like the office manager, I want you to be able to really extrapolate some of the technical information back to people at all those different levels. And that is almost an unmeasurable skill, which I'm personally just determining from chatting to someone. And it might be saying like, where do you go on holiday? Or where do you live? Like, what do you like to do in your free time? And I think is hardwired in me all of these non-measurable character gauges that make me feel like I want to put that person forward for a job. And not diminishing the value that goes into chatting to the business before that. So before I get to that point, when I'm speaking to a business about them wanting to take a load of contractors on, I have to do as much possible legwork and as much digging as I can to understand them as a business and understand that particular hiring manager, because it's them who's going to make the decision. And I might find an incredible personality who's going to work really well with it. Like the most valuable question often that I'm asking is like, what type of person fits in well here? Because I can get you 10 people who have the skills, but what are you looking for from someone that's not really measurable? It's not like you do the technical test and get an answer. Like that's the easy bit. The hard bit's getting someone who fits in that kind of little niche of like gap and and he's going to complement them ultimately.
Okay, no, that's really interesting. It's really helpful. I think that would be helpful to somebody who's looking to get picked up by recruiters at the moment.
Yeah, especially on the contract side, like that level of communication is like one of the key indicators from my side anyway.
Okay. So what's the best piece of advice you've ever received, Zac?
Oh, everyone gets a job.
Okay.
So I think that everyone gets a job, right? There's no way. Well, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Everyone gets a job. So every single person I speak to has value, either to me or to the business or to the group or to my network generally. And I think it's really easy as a recruiter to just like cut people and ignore them or push them to a side because they're not right for what you're working on right now. But that person potentially has intrinsic value for the next one that comes along or the future one that comes along. Or like they live right next to the office where they want to go in 5 days a week. So every single person gets a job. And that really has taught me to like value every person I speak to, treat them like a human, like, and be honest with them and say, even though you're not right for this, hopefully it's a useful connection that we've got for the future. And yeah, I think that's probably it. Everyone gets a job, especially in tech. Everyone gets a job.
Everyone in tech will get a job. And I think it's really encouraging for you to say that, because when I first started out in tech, I was always scared. I was always scared that, oh, what if I don't fit for this job?
Yeah.
And it's fine if you don't fit because you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
There'll be another job that'll come that's better for you. And that rejection of, oh, we didn't want you, or maybe you don't like the company or whatever, that's fine, because there is a job out there for you. And when you get that good fit, it just feels right. It feels right with the people that you're working with. It feels right with the project that you're on. So everyone will get a job.
Yeah, and I think that, like, say we're talking about market cap before, right? The market cap of tech is only getting bigger. There's more startups, there's more businesses with funding, there's more people doing innovative things, and there's every single type of personality doing that. From your introverts, extroverts, introverted extroverts, neurodivergent, like every single type of person fits in that ecosystem somewhere. And I think often people who are doing that entry into tech can feel like they don't quite have what it takes to be, because they've been knocked back from an interview. And that's not necessarily a reflection on them. It's a reflection on the shape of businesses. Like, you might fit really well into a $5 person startup, or you might fit really well into a 500 person business.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you've got to find the right place for you that's going to allow you to grow and develop and earn more cash and have a nicer life. And there's so many different jobs out there. There's tons of businesses all doing different things.
Yeah.
So the most important thing to recognize that if you are going to interviews and do stuff like that, you've got to make sure that they're right for you. Not that you're right for them necessarily. Right? It's a two-way interview.
It's a two-way interview.
If they start talking about some like harebrained, mad schemes, and you're like, right, this is not.
I'm not on this.
Because there is another one.
Yeah. I think the older I become, or the more years I get in the tech experience and stuff, I do see that it's kind of like a friendship or any relationship when it comes to business as well and work, because you need to have a compatibility on both sides.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable, or they're not going to be happy with you. So it's like you need to see if you're a good fit.
Yeah, and I think that everyone has a different fit for them. Like what I want out of a job is completely different to what anyone else wants out of a job.
Yeah,
and you have to really define that. And if you define it well enough, then there's no stopping you.
Yeah,
there's no ceiling that can stop you wherever you go. Right.
Yeah,
you've got to make sure it's right for you.
Yeah,
ultimately. So,
Zac, how do we find you? Where are you? Are you on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn. I'm not a prolific user of LinkedIn, but I am on there. It's a bit of a different. LinkedIn gives a bit of a different perspective on recruiters to the one that I try to reflect on myself. I also kind of have like the yips about posting on LinkedIn. So, like, I can't quite press the post button. Honestly, it's so hard.
I recently started posting on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you're great.
Yeah, well, I've just started, so. I think it is hard to stay up with LinkedIn because it's like it's not a social media platform. It's not like you go on.
Well, it is now. It is, isn't it?
It is now, but it's not. What I mean is, it's not like Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook or whatever. So it's a bit like you have to be more intentional about it, and you have to make sure you look professionally acceptable. You can't just put a selfie on there and just be like, "Hey."
You definitely can't. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't. Right?
Okay.
I think that. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn if you want to find me on LinkedIn. I'll probably reply to you.
Okay.
You can find me in and around Manchester at different events, meetups. I've just taken over the hosting or the organising of a new meetup called Tech Rise Manchester, which is all about human personal development and making anyone who works in tech better, which you're definitely going to have to come and do a little talk at.
I love that. Well,
and you can find me on Twitter. Where it's mostly where I just post like things about my life. It's not very work focused. Or you can find me ringing up your phone when I'm looking for someone to do a job for me.
He might discover you on LinkedIn, guys, or JobServe.
Yeah, job boards, Clip Anywhere. I think that there's so many different resources and so many different pools. And I think that in recruitment, a lot of people limit themselves to LinkedIn. And such a small percentage of the working population are on LinkedIn. Like, I don't know that many people outside of like my industry who are on LinkedIn. Like if I said to my dad, were you ever on LinkedIn? He'd be like, no.
Yeah.
Like not a thing.
Yeah.
So don't limit yourself to that. Like if you're looking to network and grow with people, like essentially getting in touch with me, then there's so many different options. From meeting people in real life is definitely the best
Networking events, I think, are the best thing, because when you have a conversation with someone, they remember you, and you can also call them up and be like, hey, have you got any positions? I met you 2 months ago now for work, and you'd be like, oh yeah, I met you, and I think you're a really good fit for this. So I think it's really important to meet people in person.
Oh, 100%. And it's like personal development as well, right? So if you want to go to like Manchester Tech Festival this year and listen to stuff which is going to make you better at your job, then you have to invest in that personal growth too. Like I'm prolifically bad at a lot of things, and going to those events and meeting people. I tell you what, I'm really, really bad at writing emails and making them sound normal. I just write it.
ChatGPT helps me.
Yeah, well, that's cheating.
I know. I write an email and I go, hi, can you improve this email? Yeah. And then it just sends me like an improved version.
I just have this like instant like word vomit basically, where as I say something, I would type it and then I hit send and I look at it and I think,
that doesn't make
you sound like a lunatic. Or like you sound like really angry because I can say stuff and like, well, it's like when you're having a text conversation and it's got no like punctuation or any like intonation, you don't know where. So I much prefer meeting people, chatting to them, and I'll meet anyone. Like the amount of times I'm out, I go for lunch quite a lot with different people, drink coffees.
Yeah, I remember when you first called me actually, and we had a chat, and you were like, "Oh, are you free for lunch sometime?" And that just felt like, wow. where have we gone wrong as a society? Because we don't do this anymore. We don't really meet up with people anymore. We don't really do the in-person catch-ups and stuff. And it's like, when you said that, I was like, oh, that's really refreshing, to be able to.
Because there's such a low barrier to entry.
Exactly. And I think people just need to do the little small things of like coffee and lunch. And
it's not even that. It's just literally like, if you say you're going to do something, just do it.
Just do it.
If I say I'm going to call you back, even if I don't know if they're going to give you the job or not, me ringing you up and saying, I ain't got a clue where we are, is 10 times more valuable than you going, what's going on?
Yeah.
Or, just do what you say you're going to do. Like, if you want to have a collaborative, successful working life, like, you just got to go a little bit
extra mile.
Do a little bit more than everyone else does. And all of a sudden you stand out for some miles. So
thank you so much, Zac.
I
really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure the viewers have enjoyed it as well. And it's going to be very valuable for people who are trying to understand the market, understand how they're going to scale up to senior and earn the big money. So guys, I've given you the insider tips and tricks on how to scale your income and your career. So I say go into contracting, give it a go. And if you need any tips, advice, or even any leads, you've got Zac. So thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.